All right, so up next, you might have heard at the beginning, Jay did the quick overview that we have the Plugfest efforts that have taken place upstairs. So today we have Jeff Terrace, a senior staff engineer from Google, who leads their cloud storage, or has worked on their cloud storage effort for the last 12 years. And Frank Borich, hopefully I said that correctly, is a principal engineer with IBM working on cloud object storage. So the two of them are going to come up here and do a joint presentation on an update on S3 compatibility testing.
Hello? Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Frank Borich. I'm a software engineer at IBM. I'm currently working on a S3 compatible object storage system that we use in our public cloud offering, as well as many on-prem customers as well. I've been working with the S3 API since about 2012.
Hi, I'm Jeff Terrace. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work on Google Cloud Storage, where we also have an S3 interoperable API, which I've worked on for 12 years, but we launched, I think, in 2010. So it's been a while.
So let's start by refreshing on what cross-vendor compatibility is and why we care about it. So in this context, it's basically just the ability for applications that interact with S3 or that use S3 to interact with object storage to function seamlessly across different object storage solutions provided by different vendors. And it's a very nice property because it enables all sorts of good things. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it's a few of the key ones. You can use it to prevent vendor lock-in. It can be used to avoid a single point of failure. It can provide the ability to react to compliance changes. You can use it to reduce cost. You can spread the load or capacity across multiple storage systems for parallel capacity. And it can even create an environment more conducive to innovation because you're not limited by the properties of any one object's service deployment or implementation. SNIA has a couple of resources on this topic. In the form of a couple of webinars, as well as a multi-cloud white paper. So if you're interested in this topic, I would encourage you to check those out. Okay. So before we talk about the community and the testing and the problem we're trying to tackle here, I think it's important to have a mental picture of what the S3 ecosystem looks like currently. And so this isn't an exhaustive list either. But I think it's complete enough for what we're talking about today. So at the heart of it all, you have a de facto standard REST XML API. By de facto standard, we mean that it's widely adopted and used, even though it hasn't been formally recognized by any standards organization. You have a robust AWS service deployment for which the API was created, high quality documentation, AWS provided wrapper APIs in the form of SDKs. AWS provided client applications and tools. And then there's other S3 compatible object storage systems. We all know there are many applications that use S3 to interact with object storage for a wide variety of use cases. Backup and archive, data analytics, even AI is starting to. And then there's a large community around all of this. An example of that is all the SDKs are open source, and so you can look on GitHub and engage directly with the AWS community on those projects. And then there's also even custom extensions and SDK tool forks lurking about as well. So now that we have a basic mental picture of what the ecosystem looks like, we can talk about the problem that we're interested in. And it's basically just user-facing compatibility issues around this ecosystem. An application may be working fine and then just breaks suddenly. Maybe a change was made, maybe a library was upgraded, or a config parameter was tweaked, or maybe a change wasn't made. Maybe the application just performed an operation that an S3 compatible implementation didn't support. And when these sorts of things happen, it's reliability that suffers. And we all know in storage that the ability to read and save off valuable data is critical. So users have come to expect that storage performs consistently well. And this problem, impacts that. Detection of the problems can be hard. Sometimes everything seems to be working okay, but under the covers it's behaving unexpectedly. Root causing of the problems can be hard. Sometimes the user just gets a 500 error with no useful information and they have no clue where to start. Workarounds are often hard or not possible. Oftentimes when this happens, you have no control over code, you have no ability to deploy changes quickly, and you may have just performed an operation that an S3 compatible system doesn't support and may never support. And when that happens, you're kind of stuck, or you have to get really creative. So this is just bad for everyone involved. It impacts, the main thing is it impacts the user experience. It's also bad for business because you have unsatisfied customers, and then everyone has to spend time and energy to investigate, root cause, and resolve these issues. So now that we have a mental picture of the ecosystem and a high-level understanding of the problem, we can talk about how problems happen. So basically, AWS S3 service deployment serves as a continuously changing reference implementation for all of the S3 compatible implementations. The documentation is not always accurate or 100% complete. And detailed testing is often required to determine the expected behavior. And it may change. Server-side changes are continually being deployed, and the SDKs and clients are continually being updated to assume those dependencies. And S3 compatible implementations may not support the change as it's happening. With the current versioning strategies and backwards compatibility criteria, detecting changes in a timely manner isn't always easy. Most of the changes are considered as being backwards compatible. So, no new major versions are introduced. What appears to be a safe backwards compatible change for the AWS deployment may not be for the S3 compatible implementations. Oh. It's also important to recognize that the core I/O APIs are continuously evolving. So any change or compatibility lag in this area only increases the likelihood of issues. Third-party implementations typically support a subset of the operations, and new functionality is continuously being added. So if the user performs an operation, it just may not be supported by the S3 compatible system. And applications often depend on a subset of the functionality based on what's current and implementation time. And so, the developer or customer just kind of takes a best guess at what basic S3 compatibility is and uses that. There's really no reliable or cost-effective way for anyone to know. There's no agreed upon idea of what basic S3 compatibility is for all of the use cases. So even seemingly basic functionality isn't guaranteed to work against S3 compatible systems. And finally, even following some best practices can cause issues to emerge. A couple examples of this is ignoring unrecognized HTTP request headers and quick adoption of the SDK updates, because when you do those to pull in some fixes for security vulnerabilities, you may also be pulling in changes to the default behavior. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to kind of talk about the community that we're building around all of this.
All right, so you just heard from Frank all of the problems that we face with cloud object storage systems, and so you might ask, what are we going to do about it? And so that's where SNIA comes in, and why some of us are here this week. So SNIA has been putting on cloud object storage Plugfests Many of you are probably familiar with Plugfest, but the idea is that all of us who have these compatibility issues, who have S3 clients and S3 servers, get together and try to test our clients and servers together in a large matrix. SNIA provides a vendor-neutral space, so we this week we've been upstairs in a room where we can all sit together. Membership to SNIA is not required. I think you can join the Plugfest without being a member, which is good, especially for newer companies and startups. Beforehand, we've been having weekly meetings where we plan, define the test matrix and decide which clients are going to test against which servers, so that when we get here on the Plugfest day, we're ready to go and we know what we're going to test. And while we're here, we're able to find and fix and discuss issues before customers do. So, we may be testing a client with a server that we've never done before, and we discover some issues. It's great to discover that in our testing environment before we get a customer support issue telling us that something's broken. The Plugfest is protected by NDA. So before you can come, you have to sign an NDA that says you won't disclose any of the information that you learned while you were at the Plugfest. So this is great because you can find lots of bugs, you can find issues, and you can fix them with some privacy, so that it's not publicly disclosed that any given client or server had problems. You don't have to bring a finished product, so we have lots of people who bring preview versions or beta software or upcoming release versions of new software that they haven't deployed yet, and we can just throw that right into the matrix and test it along with everything else. And we've also been encouraging testing off-the-shelf open source applications. So there's lots of open source tools and infrastructure that people use surrounding the S3 ecosystem, which Frank talked about. And we can throw those right into the matrix and test those as well. Some of the discussions that came out of the Plugfest, we all face kind of similar issues. So we discovered that for a given problem, everybody encountered that problem, and we discuss ways that we can deal with that problem in a shared space, again, that's under NDA and sort of private, so we can have open discussions. We did lots of brainstorming about ideas for the future, and we co-hosted it with SDC so that we can be here today and participate in SDC talks. I want to summarize. We had a Plugfest back in September of 2024 in Santa Clara, and some of the outcomes from that. This is a quick summary, but we had a very productive testing session where we got lots of clients and servers together and were able to see what was interoperable and discuss issues. We had a conclusion that there should be more collaboration around test tools. So, having robust testing suites and reference implementations that we can all use and develop against would be very valuable for all of the participating clients and servers. We discussed how it was difficult to discover, what the properties of the reference implementation are with S3 API. And it's difficult to share those across companies because there's lots of proprietary knowledge there. And everything is biased towards this one specific implementation, the AWS reference server. There's some links here if you download the slides to a webinar that we had after this Plugfest, where we discussed some of the conclusions here and some of the problems with this space. And there's some slides that go over it as well. For the Denver one, so this week we just put this slide together yesterday. Here's a picture from upstairs on the rooftop deck where we all got together. Some of the early conclusions that we discussed from this event, we reiterated a lot of the same problems from last time. So we still had productive testing. We had even more productive testing. We had a larger matrix. We had more clients and servers. So we were able to test more combinations of clients and servers together. We found more issues. There were some cases last time where we couldn't get past a problem. Once we got past that problem this time, we found more problems. And so, it's really valuable to be able to do that testing in this shared space. We had more vendors. So again, more companies participating, more clients, more servers. One of the conclusions we came up with was there's some missing functionality in the S3 reference API that kind of hinders our cross-vendor compatibility. So I'll give you an example. One of the common use cases is you want to take data from one provider and move it to another or copy it to another. There's a lot of companies doing multi-cloud architectures where you want your, in the face of any problems, you can flip a switch and just have your application hit a different service provider and everything should just work. But the base API doesn't have some functionality that's missing in order to have a robust implementation of that. We had a brainstorming session about what S3 compatibility means, and I think the takeaway was it's very difficult to define what S3 compatibility means. There are dozens of features in the S3 API, and so we talked about like feature sets and maybe defining profiles where you can say, here are the properties of the API and my implementation supports, these 7 out of 12 properties. Because it's not as simple to just say, I'm S3 compatible. That's too simple of an approach. So what else can we do? We're trying to have a call to action here, so we want you to join us. If you are interested in cloud object storage, if you have a cloud object storage client or server, we want you to join us. There's a survey here. I'm going to plug this survey, no pun intended. Go to the survey, fill it out if you are at all interested or involved in cloud object storage. It asks a bunch of questions about your involvement with cloud object storage, how you use it, and it will give us valuable data that we can use during our sessions. After the September Plugfest, we started a SNIA provisional working group around testing tools. So the idea is maybe we can develop some open source testing tools and infrastructure to make developing reference implementations against the S3 API easier. And so please join if you're at all interested in that, if you use the S3 API in any manner. So we've been having, I think, bi-weekly meetings where we collaborate on that and try to define like what the testing tools should be. And there's going to be a breakout session later today at 1 o'clock after lunch that talks about this test tools working group. So please join if you're interested. And that's with Adam Gray at IBM and Michael Hord, who's the chair of the SNIA Cloud Storage Technologies. And so this is a slide. This picture is from the September Plugfest. We were all in a room together. And the logos of all the companies who have participated in either the September or the April Plugfest. So in summary, for more information, visit the Cloud Storage Technologies CST website. There's a link in the slides if you download it. If you're interested, we're having another Plugfest in September in Santa Clara. So you can pre-register for that if you're interested. It's co-hosted again with SDC. There's a presentation link here for a Plugfest update after the last Plugfest. Or actually, no, that's a link to our slides, and I think a link to the slides at the 1 o'clock talk. So if you're interested in those. And again, please take the survey and join us. Any questions?
Just repeat it for him, it's probably easier.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question. I missed the list of people who are participating. One key one, yes, AWS. Have you had any participation from AWS?
Yeah, great question, and one that I anticipated. So yes, AWS is not on this slide. We have been somewhat in contact with AWS, and I think we welcome them. Nothing that we're doing is excluding them. But we want to provide an open ecosystem, and when and if they're ready to join, we welcome them. Other questions? What's my favorite part of the Plugfest? I guess I can go first. I think, so for me, it's discussing technical details of the S3 API that I live day in and day out with my coworkers, and finding that other companies have the exact same problems and encounters with that API. We all have similar opinions about the API, And I think that's just been really fun sharing that, especially in a private space where we're under NDA and I don't have to, maybe hide my real feelings about things, and I can be, talk about it in an open way. Do you have an answer to that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a very unique opportunity to get together with people from across the industry that all, share the same challenges that you're trying to deal with. So it's great.
Any other questions?